Fantastic.
Thank you.
That's Kylie Minogue speaking with NPR's Brittany Luce, and you can hear more on the show It's Been a Minute.
It's WNYC. Coming up next, it's Marketplace. On the show tonight, after Hurricane Helene, one farm stand in North Carolina is bringing the community together while also dealing with challenges of their own since the storm hit during peak sale season. That's coming up on Marketplace in just a moment here on WNYC. We'll be back with All Things Considered at 7 p.m. tonight. 63 degrees right now in New York City. For the rest of tonight, we'll see lows in the low 50s. Tomorrow is going to be beautiful. In fact, the weekend is looking great. We're going to see temperatures in the low 70s on both Saturday and Sunday. Sunny skies throughout. It's WNYC at 6:30.
Support for WNYC comes from the Central Park Conservancy. Central Park is a living work of art, and even lifelong New Yorkers don't know its biggest secret, that it is cared for by the Central Park Conservancy. Learn more at centralparknyc.org.
This is WNYC, 93.9 FM and AM 820. NPR News and the New York Conversation.
Marketplace is supported by C3 Generative AI. Verifiable, traceable answers, secure, hallucination-free, LLM-agnostic, IP liability-free. C3.ai. This is Enterprise AI.
It's Friday, just 18 days till you know what. Can we just take a breather? From American Public Media, this is Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by Farrar, Straus, and Giroux. Learn to make time for what counts in Meditations for Mortals, the new book from 4,000 Weeks author Oliver Berkman, out now. And by Ascensus, who's dedicated to helping people dream bigger, aim higher, and save more for retirement. More information is available at ascensus.com. And by Progressive Insurance with Snapshot. Learn more about Snapshot at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Snapshot not available in California or from all agents.
In Baltimore, I'm Amy Scott, in for Kai Rizdal. It is, yes, Friday, the 18th of October. Good to have you with us. I know the economy never takes a breather, so we have plenty to talk about in our weekly wrap, which is where we'll start today with Heather Long at the Washington Post and Kate Davidson at Bloomberg. Hi, you two.
Hi, Amy.
Hi.
All right, Heather, let's start with those better-than-expected retail sales numbers we got this week, showing once again a remarkably resilient consumer. What did you make of that report?
I know, it just feels like another data point that isn't just good, but almost borderline hot again, looking at that data. I think what really stood out to me is this feels like the year of the mini splurge. And what I mean by that is you saw really good restaurant sales again, people going out to eat every now and then with their family. You saw pretty good numbers for clothing purchases, back to school shopping for the kids or whatnot. And the other one that jumped out to me, these are all discretionary items, was personal care was up. I have just learned about this Utah hair trend where everyone's getting these long hair extensions. So those are the types of little splurges that people are doing. And that's a really healthy sign for the economy. This treat yourself economy is back, but it's sort of these mini splurges.
Yet another trend I have somehow missed out on. Kate, how about you? Any surprises or anything stand out to you in this latest report?
Yeah, I'm going to continue on the trend that Heather is talking about, and notice that also miscellaneous store retailers were up, which includes like florists and pet stores. So again, going along with this idea that I think people are splurging, not on huge things like cars and furniture. Some of those more durable goods were down. The recent report showed, but it's in the other places. Where people seem to be, remember a couple of years ago, we called it revenge spending. It seems like people are still doing it, right? They're going out and they're spending on things. And it's just kind of amazing considering where we thought we'd be at this point, which was that people would be sort of tapped out.
So how evenly distributed is this spending, though? I saw the AP had a piece today about how a lot of this is driven by the wealthiest Americans who are more flush with higher incomes, of course, stock market gains, home equity. Heather, is it evenly shared, this splurging?
Yeah, it's a really good point, Amy. As that great AP piece showed with some research from Federal Reserve data, Americans who earn $60,000 or less are still strained. And you can see that in the bank earnings that happened this week as well, that a lot of middle income consumers and certainly the upper middle income are doing just fine. And that's why the bank earnings, part of the reason they're doing very well. But you're right that folks at the bottom have really had a rough go the last few years with rental prices going up and trying to adjust to this new world of inflation. The one encouraging note, if we can have a little bit of positivity here, is we are really starting to see wage growth way outpace inflation. And, 4% wage growth in the past year versus 2.4% inflation. If we can see some more months like that, that's really going to start to help people. You just saw that big victory for the dock workers, big jump in their wages, for example. So I hope that continues.
Yeah. So, Kate, let's turn to a part of the economy where, people are still struggling, housing. As we've reported, mortgage interest rates have actually been rising, and I think many were hoping they would start to fall when the Fed started cutting. What's going on there?
Yeah, I do think that some of that is a little bit that the Fed has gotten much better over the years at signaling well in advance where things are headed. So we started to see some relief in rates really in August, kind of ahead of that big September meeting where Fed officials ultimately did cut interest rates by a 0.5 percentage point. And, since then, so a lot of those expectations were built in. We didn't see a big reaction necessarily right after that. But what's been happening since then is as we've been talking about the economic data, the signs that the economy are sending is that things are pretty good. There was some concern over the summer and ahead of that Fed meeting that perhaps we were starting to turn a corner. Things were looking a little bit shaky. The jobs report was concerning. It didn't look that great. But what we've seen since then is more evidence on the other side. And so I think there's been a sort of open question. How much is the Fed going to cut for the rest of the year? How much lower are rates going to fall? I think there's a possibility that mortgage rates in particular, maybe there's a little bit of room this year, but maybe they're not going to fall, by a huge amount heading into next year. I think it's a little bit unclear how much the Fed is going to feel the need to respond to what's happening in the economy with, what seemed like maybe rapid rate decreases. It just might be a little bit more measured and gradual.
Well, overall, as you've pointed out, the economy is still quite strong. And we've seen all this evidence of a soft landing, really. But Heather, you had a piece last week in the Post looking at how, the mood just doesn't correspond. As you say, it's been one of the best economic years in many people's lifetimes, but you wouldn't know it from talking to folks or hearing from, campaign, the campaign trail. Why do you think it's so hard to feel good about this economy?
It's such a great question. The best answer that I have right now is that most people actually want prices to fall. They want deflation. And what we've seen instead is disinflation. We've seen the rate of inflation come down, but we've seen a little bit of prices falling. Obviously, gas prices are down about 40 to 50 cents from where they were a year ago. Apple prices are down, but by and large, you don't actually want to see all the prices in the economy going down. That's usually a sign of a recession. But if you're still really frustrated about these high prices, it's hard to understand that what you really need is for your wages to keep growing a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you think we'll see more of that as the year goes on?
I hope so. We've seen 1.5 years now of wages outpacing inflation. And so I don't know, Amy, it's always difficult to make predictions, but I would say whoever wins the presidency next month is going to be really lucky, because if this trend continues the next 6 months to a year from now, I think more and more people are going to feel this and tangibly see that they are net better off.
All right. Heather Long is at the Washington Post. Kate Davidson came to us from Bloomberg. Thank you both so much and have a great weekend.
You too, Amy.
Thanks, Amy.
Wall Street ended the week on a high note. We'll have the details when we do the numbers. Coming back to housing, depending who you ask, we're short now anywhere from 1.5 million to more than 4 million homes. To be precise, that's housing units for sale or rent. And the latest residential construction numbers from the Census Bureau show that the pace of home building has been mixed. While a lot more new homes were finished in September than a year ago, those just getting started and permits for future construction both fell. But as Marketplace's Sabri Benishore reports, the type of home we're talking about makes a difference.
Home builders are not feeling particularly thrilled about starting on new apartment buildings these days. Groundbreaking on buildings with 5 units or more was down almost 16% in September from the year before. Permits were down more than 17%.
The reason I think we're not seeing as much enthusiasm among multifamily developers is that we still have a significant amount of multifamily construction in the pipeline.
Danielle Hale is chief economist at Realtor.com, and home builders don't want to build a ton more apartment buildings because they are already building them, and they are kind of over it.
In fact, if you look at the number of multifamily units that's being completed, in the most recent data, it was up almost 42% compared to a year ago.
42%. So with all that new building, Hale says rental vacancy rates are kind of in the normal range of 6 to 7%. There's not a huge incentive to keep on building like that. But also, it is hard right now to pay to build a big new apartment building. Jackie Benson is an economist with Wells Fargo.
Banks have reduced credit access for multifamily developers and fairly large margins. So multifamily developers are having a hard time finding financing.
Banks, she says, see the word commercial real estate, and it's just a no for them.
It's just higher risk.
But over in the world of single-family homes, things are different. Builders broke ground on more of them in September than they did a year ago, about 5.5% more, partly because they're just easier to do than apartments, and cheaper and faster.
Single-family homes can be delivered on a smaller scale. You can kind of roll units out by the individual units or by the dozens.
Paul Habibi is founder of Grays Lake Advisors, a real estate expert services firm.
When you have a volatile interest rate environment like we've had, builders might prefer this shorter timeline that allows them to get quicker returns.
Wells Fargo predicts that as interest rates and mortgages come down, we should see construction of both single-family homes and apartments bump up in the next year or two. In New York, I'm Sabri Benishore for Marketplace.
The rebuilding is just beginning in western North Carolina after the devastation brought by Hurricane Helene. That part of the state is home to more than 9,000 farms, and the agriculture industry is expecting losses in the billions of dollars. As the waters recede and the power returns, farmers are beginning to pick up the pieces. Marketplace's Alice Wilder went to talk to some of them.
For the past week, every day has held a little victory at Hickory Nut Gap Farm. There was the day team members got power back at their homes.
I turned on so many lights. I know, right? Yeah. Turn it on lights, boom.
And the day operations manager Virginia Hamilton discovered that the farm's piglets made it through the hurricane.
And I was so worried about them in the storm because those pigs were like a day and a half old.
We're beside a makeshift pig pen put up after Helene blew away the farm's fencing. That's a couple of Idaho pasture pigs named Noodle and Waffle. They're the piglets' moms. It turns out they knew exactly what to do in the storm.
They really just kind of like kept their babies inside and everyone lived, which is awesome.
Hickory Nut Gap Farm is in Fairview, North Carolina, a high-elevation floodplain in the Blue Ridge Mountains. They raise pigs, cattle, and poultry, but it's also a popular spot in the fall for apple cider and barn dances.
It hitting at harvest time is like an extra punch in the gut.
Autumn is the peak tourist season for Western North Carolina. Visitors flock to see the changing leaves, check out Asheville's food scene, and visit picturesque farms. The Hickory Nut Gap Farm Store and Butchery looks like a barn, and it's one of the things that makes this an agritourism destination.
That can be like more than half of our revenue squeezed into the last quarter of the year. So 2 weeks of revenue loss there is pretty massive for us.
For people in Fairview and the surrounding small towns, the store is a place where you can drop in, grab some groceries, and catch up with neighbors. But it's been sitting closed since the storm. Hamilton told me the store usually brings in about $1 million a year in revenue. And with Asheville's restaurants closed, which were a big source of business for the farm, they're banking on neighbors coming to the store. But Hamilton isn't sure how many will show up when the store reopens the next day.
I really don't know what people are going to want to buy.
We're talking next to the store's empty fridges, which are running for the first time in 2 weeks. Many residents here still don't have power or running water.
Are people going to be cooking? Are they going to want to do dishes? Like I was doing dishes in the creek. It's romantic for a couple days, and then you're really ready for paper plates.
The next morning, Gerald Malsbury and his wife Catherine arrive at the store 20 minutes before opening, eager to shop. I speak with them while they wait excitedly in the gravel lot outside.
We drove down here from Black Mountain this morning, where we were pretty hard hit by the flood.
Black Mountain is about 20 miles from the farm. Catherine Malsbury says there's just the one grocery store in town.
So they're running really, really low on food and nothing fresh. So we came down to get something we can barbecue.
What are you planning to grab once you get into the store?
The mind reels, pork chops, a couple of steaks, some hamburger.
Once the doors open, the Malsburys gleefully fill their baskets.
No receipt or anything like that? No receipt, okay.
Yeah, we're not returning it.
Right on.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming
For the staff, the energy here shifts from nervous to excited as more customers flow into the store, sharing stories from the storm and stocking up on groceries. It's a good sign for the farm, but for Virginia Hamilton and the team at Hickory Nut Gap Farm, there's plenty of work ahead.
There's a lot of damage that happened that's not going to be covered by insurance. There's probably some agricultural program out there that I can tap into.
But her internet isn't even back yet, so she can't look into that. Today is about getting the store up and running and tracking down some pigs that have escaped from their makeshift pen. In Fairview, North Carolina, I'm Alice Wilder for Marketplace.
Coming up.
Trailers were part of people's
Trailer
lives.
homes, that is. But first, let's do the numbers. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 36 points, about 0.1%, to finish at 43,275. The NASDAQ added 115 points, 0.6%, to close at 18,489. And the S&P 500 gained 23 points, 0.4%, to end at 5864. For the week, the Dow ascended almost 1%, the NASDAQ increased 0.8%, and the S&P pocketed almost 0.9%. CVS Health is warning that its upcoming earnings report is going to fall short of expectations, and it replaced its CEO. CVS Health worsened 5.25%. Netflix subscriber growth has been slowing down, but the streaming service reported its most profitable quarter ever and beat analyst expectations. Shares brightened more than 11%. Bonds rose. The yield on the 10-year T-note fell to 4.07%. You're listening to Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by Amazon Business, aiming to help save time by offering smart business buying solutions so there's more time to focus on growing the business and less time doing the admin. More at amazonbusiness.com. And by Solidigm. Today's AI ambitions require a different approach to storage. Solidigm offers solid-state storage solutions optimized for AI with higher capacities, greater speed, and energy efficiency. StorageForAI.com. And by Drexel University, whose cooperative education program positions students to explore future careers and discover their ideal profession before graduation. This is experiential education. More at drexel.edu.
WNYC is supported by Drexel University, whose model of experiential education allows students to choose their own path and explore the world, enabling them to discover their perfect career. More at drexel.edu.
Some young Americans are figuring out that a 4-year degree isn't the only path to the middle class.
Any trade like plumbers, electricians, welders, those are the dirty jobs. Those are the jobs where they couldn't afford to go to college, so they had to do this instead. Now that is definitely starting to change.
I'm Kai Wright on the next Notes from America, how opportunities in skilled trades are changing our workforce and maybe our politics. Sunday evening at 6 on WNYC.
You're listening to Marketplace on WNYC. In the 7 o'clock hour of All Things Considered, the New York Liberty are hoping to clinch a title in the WNBA Finals tonight. It's been a historically popular season for the league. We're going to take a look at that and much more at 7 o'clock. Stay with us.
This is Marketplace. I'm Amy Scott. The upcoming U.S. election isn't just on the minds of people here. The outcome matters beyond our borders. Case in point, China, one of our most important trading partners. The U.S. and China traded more than $500 billion worth of goods last year, and that could change depending on who ends up being the next U.S. president. Former President Trump has said he'd raise tariffs on Chinese exports, and Vice President Harris could extend the current policy of cooperation in some areas, protectionism in others. So how do people in China view the election? Our China correspondent Jennifer Pak visited the visa line outside the U.S. consulate in Shanghai to find out.
It can take months to get a visa appointment at the U.S. consulate. Even with a time slot, hundreds of applicants still wait at least an hour for the interview, like data scientist Andy Dong. He's renewing his American work visa and says neither Trump nor Harris is a good choice. But
if Trump was selected, that may be worse.
Worse, he says, because after Trump was elected president in 2016, he added scrutiny on Chinese students studying in fields that may impinge on American national security. This has continued under the Biden administration.
It's very tough, specifically for some major like chemistry, biochemistry, or biology, artificial intelligence, and computer science.
Trump is also not good for Chinese exporters, says salesman Huang Tao, who's applying for a business visa. He works for a company that manufactures flooring, and their products are subject to an extra 25% tariff in the U.S., imposed during Trump's first term and kept in place by the Biden administration.
Trump has already said he will increase tariffs on Chinese exports again.
Still, Huang Tao says the U.S. will remain a key market for his company.
There's still demand for our products, and anyway, American consumers bear the cost of the tariffs in the end.
Although he doesn't want Trump to win, his colleague Wang Yong does.
Because Trump is a businessman and he's all about maximizing benefits.
But did China extract a good deal during Trump's first term? Hard to say, says Wang Yong.
It just gets a feeling from the domestic media that China favors Trump more. He gets more coverage.
But most people here aren't paying attention to the U.S. election. It doesn't matter whether Trump or Harris get elected, says a woman who says she can speak freely in China. Still, like many people worried about official retaliation, she only gave her surname Wang. China's very strong now. By which she means China can handle whoever ends up being the next U.S. president. In Shanghai, I'm Jennifer Pak for Marketplace.
To tie off that housing thread we've been pulling through the show, we thought we'd bring you one more story on the theme. Over the last couple of months for our series, Adventures in Housing, we've been bringing you stories on the history of different home styles. For today's installment, we're taking a look at the American mobile home.
My name is Edward Krakhmalnikov, and I'm a public engagement specialist and placemaker here in Washington, D.C., and I have a background in historic preservation. Mobile homes developed out of the trailer that you could attach to your car and take with you wherever you wanted. And as they grew in size and luxury, they began to be called mobile homes. They were used for many reasons. One was for travel, to see sites that were otherwise quite far away and where the infrastructure for tourism wasn't quite developed yet. Trailers really came into their own during World War II, and that was the boom time for them. If you build an ammunition factory, let's say, you also have to provide housing for the people that are building the factory and for the people that are working in the factory. With trailers, you can have housing pop up overnight, which means that the factory goes online much quicker. Mobile homes continued to be a part of American culture for a very long time, and especially into the 1950s. Many from that generation, many from the baby boomer generation, spent their early formative years in trailers. And so we have very strong memories, I think, in culture today. During the run of I Love Lucy, the two stars filmed the Long, Long trailer.
It all started when Lucy told me she wanted to spend our honeymoon in a home away from...
Home. Only $1,800. And that's complete, mind you.
And it is this over-the-top comedy, of course, about newlyweds dragging a trailer with them throughout America and all the shenanigans. And it was a popular movie, but also showcased that trailers were part of people's lives. 22 million people live in mobile homes today. And there is a lot of misunderstanding around the word mobile and mobile homes. The vast majority of them do not move once they are sited. These places are special for their history, and they continue to be special today for offering affordable housing when there are so few affordable housing options remaining. It's really startling to me that there is not a single mobile home or mobile home park in the National Register of Historic Places. And it's really a goal of mine to see the first mobile home or mobile home park be listed in the National Register, because I think that will begin to change people's minds about them and open the door to seeing them. And for many people, that might be for the very first time.
Edward Krakmonikoff at the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission in Washington, D.C. Do you have a question about housing history or about your home style? We'd love to hear from you at marketplace.org.
Marketplace is supported by Rubrik. When cyber attacks put businesses at risk, Rubrik provides the power to bounce back fast. More at Rubrik.com. And by Betterment, an automated investing platform that helps make it easy to invest. Learn more at Betterment.com. Investing involves risk. And by Baird, employee-owned and independent, Baird offers global financial advice focused solely on clients' needs. More information at BairdDifference.com.
This final note on the way out today, another sign of the continuing demand for stuff in the U.S. economy. The ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach just reported their busiest quarters ever. Together, the two ports bring in roughly a third of all U.S. container imports. Bloomberg reports the complex got a boost from businesses racing to bring in goods before potential tariff increases and those avoiding hurricane and labor disruptions at ports on the East and Gulf coasts. Dock workers at those ports returned to work after a 3-day strike this month, but a temporary contract extension expires in January. Our theme music was composed by B.J. Liederman. Marketplace's executive producer is Nancy Fargali. Donna Tam is the executive editor. Neil Scarborough is the vice president and general manager. And I'm Amy Scott. Have a great weekend. Hope to see you back here on Monday. This is APM.